Hello there, Shakers. Welcome to another episode of MindShack podcast. This podcast has been developing and growing beyond our expectations.
We would really love to thank you. That's all. And we hope you enjoyed today's video.
Hello, greetings, Dumelang and Jambo. My name is Nongebo Shongwane, aka Noni. Welcome to season 4 of MindShack podcast. We are a Gen Z podcast that focuses on discussing societal issues, entrepreneurial leadership, culture, and we border on topics of psychology in the African continent. All we do here is that we shake off the cobwebs of every situation that we see in the world today in an African way. So in this episode, we want to talk about the concept of social media influence and what influence it has on our lives as people. Social media influence is a marketing term that describes an individual's ability to affect other people's thinking in a social online community. The more influence a platform or a person has, the more appeal the platform or the individual has on others. And so that's how people usually sell products these days. Here are a few other important questions that we want to frame this conversation with. Is social media net positive or negative? What does the world look like without digital media? So in this conversation, we will cover digital media, social media, and social influence. So, mind shakers, this is episode 1 of season 4, the rise of social media influences. So today I have the amazing, the pretty, the multi-potentialite Sonal. How are you doing today, Sonal?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So those that don't know, you are a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur, you are a influencer of sorts, and you're also like this amazing, like numerous multi-potentialite. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I mean, people don't know what Canvas Media is or what Canvas Cosmetics is. We're going to go into it during the episode. I'm just excited that you're here. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for a lovely introduction.
Trust me, there's a whole lot more. I think I didn't do you justice. So we're going to recap. Like, I'm actually going to go back into our conversation before we actually started recording. Like, when you accepted the invite for this episode, do you think that anything sort of got triggered when you heard what the topic is about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that the topic of social media is so important in this day and age. I think it's something that's a major part of our lives. It has such an impact on, thinking, and especially with the younger generation. I feel like it's really shaping, influencing, and just challenging the way things are, the way things work, and the way people perceive things. So yeah. I think it's good to notice or to kind of channel it in a positive way, and just identify key things about it and how we can adjust or change our thinking, or listen more or less in different ways. And I love that, and I think growing this conversation throughout Africa and amongst the younger generation who are going to be future leaders, future entrepreneurs, future the future. I think it's super important, and I'm always up for such a conversation.
Thank you so much. I actually really appreciate what you're saying, because my next question was actually going to be the fact that, like, do you think that social media has a positive or a negative sort of effect on us? Because I think a lot of people sort of think about it negatively, especially our parents. But we've seen the rise of social media, TikTok stars and Instagram stars, and all these different like platforms have created lives for people. Do you sort of think that there's a negative and positive? Is there like a middle ground, or do you think it's one or the other?
So I definitely think there's both. If we start with the overall kind of concept of social media, I think it started as a way of connecting people. And that's how, when you look at the original kind of platforms of social media, I remember going back to when I was in university, or actually 16. So I was still in high school. And it became, these social media platforms became a way of creating profiles, connecting, being able to do things like message and just communicate. But I think over time, it's grown into something that's way bigger and way more impactful. So when you're looking at social media, I think the whole realm of idealism or perfection is something that is, I think, a huge issue in terms of what is a perception that people can create for, and how you can choose how you want people to perceive you. It's not a bad thing, because it's a way that you can also build, your brand, your identity. It's a way that people can branch out, and it's definitely been a platforms. It's been a space for people to be able to grow without the old school kind of ways of growth, whether it's through a company or being a celebrity. So we've seen social media create people that have been able to, like, when you say the whole realm of influencers, or people that have made their income or made their success just by being on social media, who weren't original, celebrities before. But with that comes this whole kind of level of idealism, perfection, and that really taints and shifts people's realistic reality, perception of what reality is, because they see this ultimate perfection on social media. And so the two problems I see with social media are perfection and over perfection, which, when it's things like filters, when it's things like just only showing the highlights in a highlight reel, it can somehow trigger people behind the screens to feel bad about their lives, or feel like just because it's slightly imperfect, there's something wrong with them, and there definitely isn't. So that's the first thing. And then the second kind of thing, apart from, the perfection, is also, I think it's just this whole level of what's important and what's not. So it's like a highlight, like I mentioned, it's a highlight reel. So I think in terms of that, so one of the things we've done as a brand is our latest campaign, and we actually, as Canvas Cosmetics, and we released this mascara, which is our new Fierce mascara, is really wanted to break down and really talk about mental health wellness. And this is also something good that, it's being talked about a lot. But as a brand, we wanted to show that, look, not every day is perfect. So you're not wearing makeup to look perfect every day. If you're crying, because our makeup has features like it's waterproof and stuff like that, there are going to be days that you're going to be really down. It's really difficult to wake up, get out of bed. You are going to be crying and have your really, really down days and feel really bad about yourself, but you can pick yourself up. So the message that we've put in there is that actually we're not trying to paint this perfect scenario of the perfect woman that, should be out there, because no one is. What we're trying to do is become more realistic and talk to, as a brand, we're trying to talk to real women in a way that we can relate to you. We're the same. We feel we have our down days. We're only human. We feel, we have our highs, we have our lows. So I think now people and brands are breaking through these barriers of, it's not just perfect, but there's a deeper layer to it. So, and that's what social media can be used for. But on the positive, sorry.
You think about that. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I'm actually really glad that you spoke about that, because I was looking at all the social media timelines for your company, and I was just thinking, this feels like real people speaking to real people, and it sort of made me question whether social media is positive or negative, because evidently, I mean, if I'm just a random person on the street and I don't know who you are, and I see this sort of messaging, it makes me feel like there are real people behind the actual brand. But if I saw that in a newspaper, if I saw that like in a TV show, I'd be thinking, okay, rolling my eyes, this is definitely just an ad. Whereas on social media, it definitely feels more human than anything. So it sort of tackles the negative and positive sort of mindset. Then there is some way that you can sort of reach people in a positive way with social media, and not make it feel like, look at us, we're so perfect. look at us with all this wonderful makeup that you don't have, that you'll never
Yeah,
have access to,
yeah,
and all this touch-ups. It feels like a real brand with real people behind it.
exactly.
Sorry, I cut you off earlier. You were saying there's something positive to be said about social media.
Yeah, no, but and then when you look at social media as a way, as an outlet, like information gets spread much faster. When you look at, um, you know, things that swept the world, whether it's, campaigns such as, like, not campaigns, but movements such as things like Black Lives Matter, and people bringing awareness to underlying issues that have been there for so long, and challenging people, challenging companies, challenging, the norm, and actually questioning and being able to use social media as a voice, and making brands answerable, and brands have to respond, and they're accountable now, because without that, you could have just written a letter to, head office and corporate, which would have gotten lost in the mail. And, no, and obviously, like, that message would have gone lost or shut down. But social media has given everyone kind of more of an equal platform to have a say. No matter, who you are, you have the opportunity to kind of express yourself as well. So I definitely think it's a positive. And I think, a lot of the way we live in our lifestyle, and whether even the whole business realm, really depends on it. I mean, our business as a brand, social media is our biggest kind of base. Outside, when you think of outside things like a website, it's our biggest marketplace, where, our fans are, our customers are, people are looking towards, looking there for products, information, what we're doing, and following us. So I think it's definitely a way to stay relevant, a way to also create your own brand and make your voice heard, and a way to also, it puts kind of everyone on a more level playing field, I guess.
Absolutely. I do
Yeah.
think that's very true. I actually wanted to go into I was speaking to someone about the concept of social media displacement, that concept that having social media sort of displaces our ability to prioritize. You spoke about it earlier, and sort of the fact that now we're able to see what's important and what's not. I mean, I have a 13-year-old niece who thinks that TikTok is everything. So she
Yeah.
has no real connection to real life and spending time with the people around her. Do you think that social media has done that, or too much social media has done that? Or like, how do we then combat all of those things? Like, the mere fact that we even have a whole phrase, social media displacement, is crazy to me. Do you think
Yeah, and
there's a
I
way
think
to combat
it's
it?
it's a very, like, kind of, it's a really challenging kind of thing to think about, because actually, the second thing wanted to say that was negative, apart from the perfectionism, is things like instant gratification. So with social media, and the online world, it's very instant, whether it's likes and getting something posted and, acknowledgement, or even when it's things like, ordering online, everything's become faster. So now when you're looking at these two combined, you're looking at, success stories, you're looking at influencers, you're looking at, billionaires and stuff, and you expect to get to where they were as fast. You feel like, because they're talking about it, I need it now. I need the success now. And it kind of takes people away from that reality of things take time. It's gradual. Just because you see it on social media, just because someone is showing their yacht or their fancy holiday, or, their luxury car, it doesn't mean it happened overnight. But it's a falsified reality that you're sucked into, in terms of it. So now when you're looking at, I think the younger generation and kids and things like TikTok, I think also, it's when you're doing things behind a screen, I think you do miss out on that social interaction, or that face-to-face, and that's a whole other part of confidence that is really important to maintain and instill in children. Of course, it's so easy to just want to come home and, lie under the covers and just, watch things and TikToks and stuff like that. But what happened to the days when you used to play outside with your friends, and it was till you're called in for dinner? So it's definitely a balance I think parents have to really be more and more aware of, because even if you deprive them of social media and technology, you don't want them to fall behind either, whether it's, in school or in how fast kids are learning. And I think kids are learning much faster these days.
It's so funny that you're speaking about the fact that, like, back in the day, especially when I grew up, I mean, you play until your parents is tired of not seeing you around them. That's how much we played. We did not have phones. I think my first cell phone was I was like 16 or 17. And even then I'd forget about it. So, I mean, when I speak specifically to these teenagers, because now I sound old, when I speak to them, they're like, yeah, but in your day, you didn't have this and you didn't have that. And then I realize there's different levels at which certain things need to be combated. And I'm realizing more and more that even though they have more access to information, they have more access to the world generally, but they don't have access to like culture and where they come from and all the things that make their family what it is and all of that other information. But also they don't have access to just playing outside on a Wednesday afternoon, because there's other issues socially that prohibit that. The mere fact that there's like kidnappers and just, there's strange things going on in the world. So your parents would much rather have their kids indoors, and the only way to keep them indoors is to keep them on their phone. So I'm sort of realizing there's different levels to actually interact with the actual issue rather than just social displacement being on social media only.
Yeah.
There's also life issues that happen in real life that you don't really have any control over as a parent.
Yeah.
And then that means we sort of have to combat it on that sort of level. And I think, not a lot of people think about it that way. Because you say, go play outside, and then my niece tells you, I'm going to get kidnapped. I don't know how that happens.
This is a thank you to you, a mind shaker, a listener of this episode. We highly, highly appreciate you joining in on all of these episodes. If you can just take a second to share this link to someone, to have them tap into these episodes, that will be so highly appreciated. You are the fuel to what we're doing here. So please share the link, please like, please comment, please subscribe or follow in whichever platform you're in. And we will see you on the next episode as you continue to fuel us through. Thank you.
I'm going to start with the episode game. Are you ready? There are no prizes. I just want to let you know. Super early. The episode game is really never have I ever. You're just going to answer that. And if you can expound on it, perfect. If you can't, that's fine. When you started your career, did you sort of decide that this is what I'm going to do and I'm just going to sacrifice? Or did you sort of trip into it and go, oh my gosh, I've started this entire, business. Oh my gosh, now it's a thing.
Well, it's a funny story. So in university, of course, in your final years, you always have these big companies sending recruiters, and, you have this dream of joining a really big company. For me, I always had this entrepreneurial kind of thing in me, in terms of I definitely wanted to be a leader in an organization. So that I felt, to me, that's the only kind of way I can make an impact or, perform to my full capacity. And so I applied for all these big companies. We got interviews with PepsiCo. And I remember being flown from Vancouver. I was studying in Vancouver at the time. We were flown for our first, preliminary interviews to Calgary for the day. And we went through a round of interviews. And I remember asking one of, after the interview, one of the gentlemen interviewing me, he said, do you have any questions? And I said, yes. How long would it take to be CEO? And he said, well, that would take you around 30 years if you work your way up. And to me, I think that was the turning point, because I don't think I could have waited 30 years or worked my way up slowly through, this bureaucratic kind of organization. It could be any, I'm not saying it's PepsiCo specifically, but so then I thought, okay, how do I do this faster? And the only way was, to do it by myself, or to start something immediately. So I think for me, that was a turning point in terms of, working for myself or getting a job.
Wow. It's so brave.
Yeah.
It's so brave.
So
I
then,
don't mind working the 13 years. I'm that person.
yeah. So actually, my last job was a part-time. I was a part-time bank teller during university. That was the last job I ever had. And then after graduating, I started. We started like a small marketing agency in Vancouver with one of my ex-partners. She's from there, so we were in class together, and yeah, so that we went right in, dived right in, didn't really know what we were doing, and I think the rest is history.
It's so early. Even to
Yeah.
like have that kind of focus is insane. At that age, I was not trying to do that. I was just trying to make it through exams, honestly.
We made it through exams, and then it was more like real world. And I think it takes, you don't really know what you're doing, but you have to have enough faith in yourself to say, even though I feel, because I think something that we as people do is we always doubt ourselves. And I think the opposite attitude is what helps. Like, you need to just believe you can do it. And it sounds cheesy, but it's because like normally you're doubtful. Like, if you want to be something or do something, you always think that someone out there is doing better, there are bigger companies there, people have more money, or organizations have more money. What is someone small like me going to be able to start something and actually grow to a level that I'm competitive, or people want to, you know, use my services or buy my products? And it's a really, really daunting kind of thought when you're starting from basically nothing. But I think that's just the tenacity that you have to have to grind through over the years and just stick to the same vision. And I think anyone can do that. I really respect that, because I know how hard it is.
I'm fine with my 9 to 5.
But you know what? Some people are built. So it depends as well. There's no like right or wrong, because of course in the 9 to 5 you can be super successful. It's comfortable. You can do what you love. Of course, it's a good secured income, and there are great companies out there that have benefits. And most of the time when you're in a 9 to 5, you're actually earning more than us entrepreneurs for the first, like, you know, it could be 5 to 10
years.
years. Yeah. So sometimes, and so entrepreneurship isn't as glamorous as, you know, it's made out to be. But I think it's just this journey that, you know, people choose to take.
Okay, so never have I ever broken a bone.
I have, actually. And that was snowboarding when I was, I think I was 10. So I fractured my wrist. Yeah. And because we've been skiers since my dad used to take us skiing since we were 5. But me and my brother decided that snowboarding was the cooler one because it just looks better. So we decided to switch. And on my first day of snowboarding school, I fell and landed on my wrist. So my brother is a snowboarder, and I went back to skiing, which now I still find is as cool.
I think I'd be traumatized for life. I would never go back, ever.
I know. It's one of those sports where you have a love-hate, because you have, I mean, it's like there are times, I know I had this period where I was really scared to even go down the slope. And this was after years of skiing. It just happened to me one time. But then I got over that fear, and, you know, yeah, it's interesting. I think it makes you stronger as well. You've gone through it, and, you know, you just.
I'm still not the outdoorsy type, so I'll leave that to you. I'm definitely not an outdoors girl. So the next question is, never have I ever wanted to switch careers.
Oh gosh, I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's like there are those days that you're like, enough. I just want, you know, a routine income that I know is going to come in at the end of the month. I can take my holidays and live a comfortable life. But then you realize, wait, even if I wouldn't, always my thing is that, but I never could ever go on holiday whenever I wanted to. Like, you know, you always have to take leave and do all these things. So for me, it's like, okay, you have that motivation to just kill it. And it's the whole kind of thing is work harder than anyone else for a few years in your life, so you can live the rest of your life like not many people can. So it's a sacrifice thing.
Braver than me. I couldn't possibly be an entrepreneur.
I think it's a developed mindset. It definitely takes strength training. Yeah.
So I wanted to also speak about the younger generation and what you think should be done to sort of combat these issues, especially with social displacement. Do you think that there's a specific way to combat these issues, especially in homes and just at school, and just how they interact with each other and how they interact with the world? Do you think there's a way to actually combat it?
I definitely think, like, I'm not so familiar in terms of how schools are doing things now and how they're balancing, all these elements, whether it's COVID and social distancing and technology and stuff like that. But I think, I think the new approach is, how do you embrace all these changes, whether it's, social media technology, to benefit kids? I mean, they're inevitably going to have to use it. And for me, I think that's why I'm such a like avid supporter or for on things like entrepreneurship, because it's teaching them to use things to innovate in a way that can be profitable, can be productive, and can solve a problem. So I think at younger and younger stages, kids are being able to be exposed to, even when you look at the whole education system, and that's like a whole other topic, is it effective anymore? What needs to be changed? Is the normal standard schooling kind of structure, does that work for everyone? And does that mean, is grades and topics the only way to determine whether someone's good enough or clever enough? And I don't think it is. But, shifting the focus and teaching things like entrepreneurship and problem solving for the world, whether it's environmental or social enterprise, or even just, any for-profit enterprise with, various values, and ethics. I think that's very stimulating for the younger generation and helps them channel things in a certain way. So it also depends how you use all these things and how you can channel them for the better rather than using them for a negative.
That's very true. I'm actually sort of thinking about something that you had said earlier about the fact that, your business's biggest proponent has not only been your website, but also your ability to sort of make yourself visible on social media. Do you think that that's played a large role in how your business is sort of run, and just how you interact with people outside of your business? Because I mean, I'm thinking about the fact that you're saying, there's ways to teach kids, positive ways to make social media work for you. Has it sort of worked for you in your business? And if so, like, what are the things that you've sort of picked up about social media since you started going on to social media for business?
Definitely. I think, before we had Canvas Cosmetics, we've had Canvas Media, and it still runs as an agency. When we set up, this is around 8 years ago, we were specifically focused on being a digital agency. And what you see now with brands is, at first it was very, they're very used to the typical forms of advertising, whether it's, like radio and print and, all those ads. And then when companies started getting comfortable with the aspects of social media, they started kind of relaxing the formality of who they are and what they need to represent, and started focusing more on connecting with the customer. And when I say relaxing in the brand, it's kind of like when you go for a dinner party. There are those dinner parties you go for and everyone's kind of like smiling and pretending everything's perfect. Or there are those ones that you just really connect with people and it's very real, and they do talk about, topics and they do become a little bit vulnerable and that real conversation is one that is the most valuable. So brands have started to be comfortable doing that and also going outside the box. So part of what we do is we encourage them and we give them solutions that are kind of outside their comfort zone in terms of challenging the norm. And how actually how Canvas Cosmetics started was we were able, I mean, why we love it so much is because we were able to channel all our ideas without, you know, the client saying, no, we're too scared, it might be too risky, what will people say? And we started to do things in a way that we thought we'd take like small measured risks, and try open ourselves up as a brand and try really connect with people. So that was really positive because I think consumers are really smart now, and they're also able to see when they're just being sold something for the sake of being sold to, or whether the brand really cares. And so our job is to make sure that, as you know, as an agency, but also as a brand, is to actually care about our customers, because at the end of the day, when you have their best interest at heart, they then start to trust you. So that's kind of always been our ethos with everything we do.
I mean, it's so funny that you speak on that, because I think I was speaking to a friend who's in marketing, and they were just speaking about how they love the fact that brands are becoming so much more unique in how they actually speak to their consumers, but also they're becoming more like personalities. It's not just this big company, it's an actual personality. You can put a person or a thing on it, and you always know, like, that's the personality that I can place on it. So I think it's such a great idea to think about the uniqueness of one's voice on social media, and always just remaining true to what the brand is. Not only the brand, but just as an individual, because I know a lot of people love the idea of being a social media influencer, but they don't really think about it as being an individual. They think about it as, I'm going to pick this influencer and I'm going to copy exactly what they're doing, and I'm going to implement it all the time. Whereas your personality has, you know, attracted friends and family and people at work. So surely it can attract a bunch of strangers who want to get to know who you are and what your life is about. So I think I really like the idea of having individualism and uniqueness brought to the table when it comes to social media influencing, or just speaking on social media about what's important to you.
Definitely. And I think authenticity is huge, because I mean, even starting, like, my personal platforms are just a reflection of what I stand for, my beliefs. And it's also like kind of like people have seen me also grow as a person as the brands have grown. And I think it's a journey that they've enjoyed following. And when it's things like talking about whether it's style or actually talking about brands, I always genuinely only like to feature things and talk about things that I feel fit into my lifestyle, because that's a reflection of me. And a lot of the times people get it wrong by thinking they're chasing things like the numbers, or they're just trying to throw any and all information out there just to please other brands, or because they have to do it. And like I said, consumers are really clever now. So they like authenticity. And I think people are attracted to that, and they know it when they see it.
If you've ever imagined what a world without social media and the digital space would look like, do you think that we could survive? I mean, going this many years with so much like stuff going at us. I mean, right now I've got 2 laptops on. I've got a phone with just notifications coming down like every couple of minutes. So do you think that there's a space for a world without digital media at all, or social media, and just like literally, you know, old dial-up phones? Is there any way to go back? Do you think we could possibly go back?
I don't think we could go back. Definitely not. I think because when you look at things like businesses and e-commerce, the amount that e-commerce contributes in terms of revenues and small business and business to the world is huge. And I think without, you know, the online world, a lot of people would be out of jobs. People would lose their brands. Because then the only way you'd be able to survive if it's brick and mortar, and a lot of people haven't built their businesses on that. When you look at huge kind of organizations like Amazon and stuff, I mean, that wouldn't survive. So I definitely think there's no way we could survive based on where we are as the world. And as economies, I don't think it would survive, and it's definitely can't go back. I'm just a little bit worried in terms of where it's going. I've been hearing things about metaverse and, you know, the creation of avatars, and that's totally eliminates the need of real life. And that to me is a scary thing.
Right. I think about a year ago or so, there was this Netflix special that came out with, you know, this huge documentary about social media and data and the dilemma about social media. And it scared everyone for like a good 2 days, and then everyone went right back. So the fact that it's been so entrenched in us that we give out our information to a point that we don't even really realize that stuff like that is going on. I mean, a lot of people don't even know what avatars are or you know,
Yeah.
no one knows that stuff goes on in the background. All you're seeing is all these pretty pictures and videos and funny videos, and you're not really realizing what's actually going on. Do you think that there's a danger there, you know, long term for people?
I can't say there isn't a danger, because I don't think I know enough about, you know, this, how our data would be used and what's so important about, you know, our online data that would be used against, you know, for the West. But I definitely do feel that it's like, I definitely do see why it could be scary and negative, in terms of, you know, social media being scary. But at the same time, it's become a part of people. It's become like, when you look at something like dating, and, you know, I have like a lot of my friends are single, and it's hard to just rely on looking around you, and, you know, with things like COVID happening and stuff. When you look at like something like the whole dating industry online, your chances of meeting someone and connecting with someone are actually made higher. Like, you have a higher chance because you have so much, whether it's algorithms and, you know, match, like finding a good match and compatibility, and also beyond geographical location, it's opened up more opportunity. And that's just one example of an industry that, you know, has made it easier for people to connect, or given them a higher chance of hope, or connecting. So I definitely think, you know, obviously it has its total cons, but also there's a whole world that's been opened up in all these different ways for people that are at the same time surviving a pandemic that makes you stay at home and doesn't make you go crazy because you're not able to connect with anyone.
That's very true. I mean, I will definitely say that social media became my best friend when, you know, COVID hit. Everybody
Yeah.
was at home. All the
Yeah.
streets all over the world had shut down.
Yeah.
So the only way that we could connect was via social media. I mean, I
Yeah.
learned how to bake bread via
Yeah.
social media. So that was
Yeah.
perfect. But also just the
Exactly.
fact that people, everybody's just learned to bake. I don't know how that happened. But the mere
Yeah.
fact that movements and connections and relationships are created so easily via social media, even through one conversation. I mean, I saw on the timeline recently someone had just experienced like a very traumatic death, which I really connected with because I experienced the same sort of thing. So the moment that I reached out to them and I said, you know, it's very possible, I'm 5 years into this whole journey, it's very possible you can get over it, they sort of became friends with me. It wasn't like a tight friendship, obviously, because we're not crazy, but it's another connection that they've built that
Yeah.
helps them go on in their normal lives. So I do think, as much as there's negatives and all the scary stuff going on in the background, there's also really great positives if you use social media in the right kind of way.
Definitely. And I mean, for me, sometimes I find a lot of my motivation from social media, from someone just messaging me like, you really inspire me, from me being able to, I created this whole, actually, so during when this whole pandemic hit, we were all at home, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to do a day of free calls for girls that want to start their own businesses. And I did a sign up sheet, went onto Zoom, and spent like a whole day just talking to different people that wanted to start their own businesses and asking like their insights. From there, I started to build this coaching program where I take two to four mentees a month and work one-on-one with them to really build their brands. And for me, it's so fulfilling. It's one of the most fulfilling things I do. And I love it. And it's not about anything else except knowing that you've given your knowledge to someone and you're helping someone. And when you hear their feedback, or they're so grateful, or they really tell you how it's helped them and they could have never done it otherwise, that's what is really, really fulfilling. But this is also something positive that came out of, something negative like the pandemic. But I was only able to do through a platform like social media. So, I mean, there are hundreds of examples, but like I said, I find a lot of my daily motivation from other people, connecting with other people through social media on days that I would otherwise be really, really down or low. So it's really good because it adds that level of, you can make an impact. You are greater than just, being in one room, and your level of impact, like your effort, can affect more people with social media, because they are, the thousands of followers watching are being, your message is getting to them. So it's really, I think it's given me more of a sense of purpose as well, because that you're able to touch more people along the way.
I mean, in conclusion, I do think that I'm really glad that we had this conversation the way that we had it, because I think there's a daunting feeling when it comes to the rise of social media influencers, especially for like older people. And there's also a daunting feeling for people that want to do something positive in the world and don't know how to do it, because the people that they look up to have such big followings. So I'm really glad that the conversation sort of went the way that it went, because when you started your businesses, I don't think you thought the first thing I want to do is start a social media movement, but you just wanted to start a business and let people know about it. So it really starts from like a small idea of just doing something positive, and it moves into whoever needs it will find it, and I'll try to do what I can do best.
Exactly. And if you stay authentic and you don't force it, and it's not just about the numbers, it's about, also being smart about what you're putting out there. You want to channel your message in a way that people would want to connect to or find it interesting as well. So it's not also like spam. So it's having a good balance between giving people quality but staying authentic, and then I think that's a perfect combination, actually.
Adolescents seem to value visually focused social media sites for exploring their identity. There's a lot of different strategies and self presentation on Facebook and Instagram, and it seems to serve identity. And the one thing that I would like people to remember, just sort of a couple of takes from this episode, is that we encourage, as MindShack, for others to do some self-introspection, develop a healthy relationship with the use of digital media and social media, find a way to turn off your notifications when you don't need them, and offer an analog over digital, and educate yourself in organic forms of digital media, and just find new ways to interact with other people and create communication and connections. Today's guest, I just want to thank you so much, Sonal. I'm so inspired by your work. I love your work. I love Canvas Cosmetics. I'm such a big fan. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your views and your opinions are so important. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really, really love the conversation with you.
Thank you for listening through to the end. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform, or all of them.
There's going to be plenty of exciting episodes to come, so if you want to catch that, follow us on all social media platforms at MindShack Podcast, and of course, follow us or subscribe to us on our YouTube platform or our YouTube channel at MindShack, and of course, see you on the next one.